Residents in Austin, Texas are ridiculing the third world-like conditions they've been hit with as the city faces its second boil water notice this year. A boil water notice was issued Saturday night due to an internal treatment process issue that resulted in high turbidity. So what exactly is turbidity? Well, according to the interwebs, it's a measurement that indicates the clarity or the clearness of the drinking water. It indicates the presence of suspended solids like clay, plankton, or other contaminants. As for what and why this happened, well, according to Austin Water Director Greg Mazzaros, the issue at the plant stemmed from a mistake made by operational staff.
We experience a turbidity spike. We need to consult with the regulatory agencies, TCQ. We did that throughout the day and ultimately arrived at a decision that we had to issue a boil water notice, which we did today. This was an internal process at the plant. This was not caused by anything in the river itself. This was internal process water that created this turbidity spike. Our other systems at the plant were functioning well that day, particularly our disinfection systems. So our chlorine systems, we feel this is a low-risk event, but nonetheless, it is a mandatory boil water notice for the city that we're working through today.
Now, things happen, we get that, but keep in mind Austin prides itself on being a high-tech hub. It's home to Google and Facebook, among others. Join me now, co-founder and chief strategist at GDP Advisors, Seth Denson. Seth, thank you so much for joining me. So, Seth, when I saw this headline, it kind of raised my eyebrow. I'm like, in Austin, Texas, they're having trouble with water, huh?
Yeah, maybe if they'd focus a little bit more on their infrastructure and less on maybe defunding the police and all the other things they want to focus their attention on, they get this under control. You mentioned it, Stephanie. Austin is the tech capital of the South, but you just have to get past all the homeless camps and apparently the water trucks to get there, and which is really sad. Austin, I'm a Texan, a lifelong Texan. Austin is one of the most beautiful areas we have, but oftentimes we refer to it as the closest city to Texas because it's unlike any other part of the state. And listen, I grew up in the deserts of West Texas, and we used to drink our water with a fork, but nonetheless, we knew that because we're in the desert and that's just the way it was. Austin, this place that, prizes itself as being this bastion of the left in the red state of Texas, that infrastructure and water and clean everything, and then they can't even get their water right. Maybe they need to get their priorities in order.
When you just think of how essential it is to run a business to have water and just to manage your day-to-day life. So I'm wondering how this will affect potential businesses or corporations and others who want to move to Austin. I get that it's only happened twice in a year, but that's still a lot.
It is, and that's certainly a challenge and something, one of the things that attracts a lot of corporations to Texas is, the infrastructure, the quality of life, the low cost of living, but as long as you can live without water, I guess in Austin, you'll be just fine. This is certainly a blemish, we'll say, on the city of Austin, and hopefully they'll get their act together. A lot of companies moving to Texas, a lot of people moving to Texas. It's a great place, but we need to get this in order. We need to get it sorted out.
Yeah, and then over in California, there's a bit of a controversy. A gas utility was fined there $10 million for the misuse of ratepayer money. That's kind of incredible.
Yeah, so effectively what the Southern California Gas, I think is the name of the organization. So what they did is they effectively sent their employees to these places to effectively lobby against efficiency in energy. Because, if energy is less efficient, then you buy more gas. But listen, a $10 million fine, this company does $4 billion a year in revenue. This isn't even a rounding error for them. But nonetheless, we slap their hands, don't do it anymore, except maybe just keep doing it and you'll generate more revenue. But again, going back to California, Austin, Texas, there's a consistent theme here of states and local governments that pride themselves on being these bastion of clean energy and all of that, and yet here we go. Maybe they don't have their house in order either. Shocking in California.
Exactly. Speaking of clean energy, if you will, I guess the climate warrior Nancy Pelosi, she spent $500,000 on private jets, we're learning. And so, again, I don't have a problem with private jets. In fact, I really like private jets. But if you're going to complain about climate change all day and people's carbon footprints, then maybe you shouldn't be flying private.
This goes back to, I know earlier, or years ago, when Leonardo DiCaprio was out there virtue signaling, but what about flying private, and people shouldn't do that, except, he has a 315-foot yacht. But listen, every 4 hours spent on a private jet is the total amount of carbon emission that the average person does annually. So, Madam Pelosi flying all across the country, this is hypocritical again. This is just another theme of rules for thee but not for me that we continuously see from all these people that are fine with masks and clean energy and you need to do these certain things, except don't ask me to do them.
Yeah, and then they're so shameless when they get caught. Usually they try to deny it, but then when they can't get around it, they're like, oh, well, it's really important for me to get from point A to point B to get my point across about climate change. We actually heard the climate czar, John Kerry, say this.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi, she bastions herself as someone who's always fighting the good fight here. That climate change is the largest, I think she said, largest existential threat to the country. Okay, well, maybe Ms. Pelosi, you are the largest existential threat to the country, because we continue to see your leadership, which is you lead by example, not by words, and we're not seeing good examples coming out of the Madam Speaker these days.
Yeah. And, again, if they were really taking it seriously, they wouldn't call it an existential threat and then hop onto their private jet or have the yachts or the mega mansions. And instead, this is all about policies that they're trying to move forward that really have very little to do with climate. It's more about taxes and regulations.
It's about control. If this is really about climate, we would not have been in support of Nord Stream pipeline running from Russia to Germany, while at the same time we're shutting down the Keystone pipeline here in the United States, which would have created jobs and helped us remain energy independent. How's that working out for you, Mr. President? Now we are subservient to OPEC once again. We're looking at Russia putting 150,000 troops off of the border of Ukraine, and now we're subservient to them too. We're literally playing in to the rest of the world's hands. And I've said it a long time. My faith teaches me that, we should fear God. Well, guess what? In the global economy, you fear the United States. That fear is gone now, and it's because we want to, play to the left and do all of these virtue signaling things, but we don't want to lead by example. We don't want to have a good policy, and this is not just here in the United States, it's globally now.
Yeah. All good points, Seth. We're going to leave it here. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph.